After giving them my entire life savings when their business failed, I asked if they'd help me fix a leaking pipe in my bathroom. My son-in-law replied, "I'm not your handyman. Figure it out, old man." My daughter told me to stop being dramatic. I took out my folder of receipts, contracts, and emails and walked into a lawyer's office to begin. I'm a 68-year-old retired mechanic from Erie, Pennsylvania. I worked in the same auto shop for over 40 years. I was never rich, but I saved. I planned well. I always believed in keeping things simple and steady. My wife passed away when our daughter, Dana, was just 9 years old. I raised her by myself. No family close by. No help. Just me and her against the world. Every school project? I helped. Every time she was sick, I sat by her bed all night. I never missed a parent-teacher meeting. She was my whole world. I didn't date after her mother passed. I just worked, paid off the mortgage, and tried to be the kind of dad she could depend on. When Dana graduated college, I paid off her loans. When she got married, I gave her and her husband Brandon a check for $20,000 to help with the house. I didn't even think twice. Brandon rubbed me the wrong way from the start. Too smooth. Always talking about startups and angel investors and IPO strategy. I'd ask simple questions like, "So what exactly do you do?" And he'd start throwing around buzzwords. I never understood what he actually did all day, but I stayed out of it. 2 years ago, they came to me in tears. Their digital marketing company had crashed. They claimed it was a bad merger deal, some legal problems, cash flow issues. Brandon said they'd tried everything, but without a big cash injection, they'd lose their house, their health insurance, their business, and everything else. Dana cried, told me they had nothing left, that she might be pregnant, and they didn't even have enough for groceries. I gave them $75,000 that first month, then $40,000 a few months later, then another $50,000. I paid for their taxes. I co-signed a loan. I even cashed out one of my retirement accounts and paid the early penalty just so they wouldn't lose their house. Total damage, $280,000. Nearly all my savings. I wasn't angry. I just figured this is what parents do. I thought Dana appreciated it. I really did. After they got the money, they disappeared. At first, it was little things, calls not returned, short texts. Dana stopped visiting altogether. On holidays, I'd get a photo of a turkey or something, but they never came in person. Brandon would occasionally send me vague updates about how things were turning around, but never specifics. I didn't want to push. I hate being the guy who nags. I told myself to be patient. Last winter, a pipe burst in my upstairs bathroom. The ceiling in my kitchen started to stain and bubble. I couldn't climb up to do anything myself. I'm old now and my knees are bad from years under hoods and crawling on cold shop floors. I called Dana. It took 3 tries before she answered. "Hey, sweetheart," I said. "The bathroom's leaking pretty bad. Is Brandon free to come take a look? I'll pay for the parts, I just can't get up there myself." She paused. I could hear her chewing. Then she said, "Dad, Brandon's not a handyman. He's got a lot on his plate. You should just call a plumber. I'm just asking for a favor. One afternoon." "You're being dramatic," she said. "You always make things bigger than they are." That night, I got a text from Brandon. "I'm not your handyman. Figure it out, old man." I sat in my recliner with that message glowing on my phone screen. My chest tightened, not from sadness, but something colder, like a switch had flipped. These 2 people took nearly all the money I had. Money I saved for decades. I couldn't travel now, couldn't fix my roof, couldn't even afford the new hearing aids my doctor recommended last month, and they couldn't even be bothered to fix a leaking pipe. So I stood up, went to my bedroom closet, and pulled out the thick folder I'd been building since the money started leaving my accounts. I had copies of everything. Emails, text messages, wire transfers, checks, loan agreements, and even a handwritten note Brandon gave me that said they'd repay every dollar within 2 years with interest and gratitude. I put on my coat and drove downtown to see a lawyer a buddy of mine recommended a while back. Her name is Susan Merkel. Tough, no nonsense. She used to be a prosecutor. I sat down in her office and slid the folder across the desk. "I think I'm done being taken for a ride," I said. She opened it and started reading. She didn't speak for 10 minutes. Then she closed it, leaned back and said, "You've got more than enough here. If you're serious, we can go after them hard. I nodded. I'm very serious, I said. I want everything they owe me, and I want them to remember who they stole it from. Susan didn't waste time. She had a paralegal make copies of everything in my folder, then scheduled a formal demand letter to go out the next day. I left her office feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time: steady. Focused. For weeks, nothing. Then I got a call from Dana. Why are you doing this? She snapped. No hello. No checking in. Just straight to anger. You gave us that money, Dad. You offered to help. Now you're suing us. I kept my voice calm. I helped because I trusted you. I thought I was helping my daughter build a life, not burn mine down. You're being so vindictive. I stayed quiet for a second. Then I said, I gave you $280,000. I didn't ask for interest. I just asked for honesty. And maybe when my ceiling was caving in, a little help in return. She went quiet for a moment. Then, real soft, she said, we don't have it. You're lying, I said flat. I saw Brandon's Instagram post last week. New Tesla. Weekend in Miami. Don't insult me. She hung up. A week later, Susan called me and said they responded through a lawyer of their own. The letter denied everything. They claimed the money was a gift. Said I pressured them to take it out of guilt for not being around when Dana was younger. That last part hit me like a punch. I was around. Every day. Every night. I gave up everything to raise her. Now they were rewriting history to make me look like the bad guy. We filed the lawsuit. They panicked. Brandon's lawyer tried to delay everything. Claimed Dana was emotionally distressed and needed time to respond. Susan didn't care. She filed a motion to push forward. Then, out of nowhere, I started getting calls. From people I hadn't talked to in years. One was a man named Carl who used to work with Brandon. He'd been fired from their company 2 years earlier. He told me something I wasn't expecting. Brandon used your money to pay off a silent investor, Carl said. Not debts. Not payroll. He needed to buy the investor's silence. What silence? He was caught using company funds to buy crypto. Secret accounts. The guy threatened to expose him if he didn't pay up. Carl sent me screenshots of emails and account transfers. They matched the exact days I'd wired Brandon money. One transfer was for $60,000. Another for $85,000. Not to a bank account, but to a private wallet address. I handed it all to Susan. She lit up. This is fraud. Not just civil. This could go criminal. More weeks passed. Then Brandon showed up at my house. Just knocked on the door like nothing had happened. I opened it, stared at him, and said nothing. Can we talk? He asked. I think it's a little late for that, I said. He tried to play it cool. Said he was trying to make things right. Said the lawsuit would destroy Dana. Said it would ruin her credit, her career, her life. I told him what Carl had said. I told him I had the emails. His face drained of color. He didn't say another word. Just turned and walked off my porch. Later that night, Dana called again. She didn't yell this time. She just cried. I didn't know about the crypto. I didn't know he was lying to you. I didn't know if I believed her. But I said, you didn't have to lie to me about the pipe. You didn't have to ignore me after I gave you everything. You chose to treat me like a problem instead of your father. More silence. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm not done yet, I said. This isn't just about money. It's about respect. About consequences. I hung up, and the lawsuit kept moving. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Susan. She sounded sharper than usual. You might want to sit down, she said. Brandon's financials had come back under subpoena. His lawyer fought like hell to block it, but the judge sided with us. What we found wasn't just troubling, it was something else entirely. Turns out Brandon had been siphoning money not just from me, but from others too. His old business had 5 other investors on paper. 3 of them were family members. One was an old college roommate. All of them had transferred large sums of money to Brandon's personal accounts under the promise of high returns. Just like me. Every one of them got burned. But here's the real kicker, Brandon never shut the company down. On paper, the LLC was still active. But he listed Dana as the majority owner months after the supposed collapse. He did it without her knowledge. That meant everything he did after that, crypto laundering, silent payouts, wire fraud, was technically under her name. I didn't know how to feel. Part of me was furious for Dana allowing things to get this far. But the other part of me started seeing something else. Brandon hadn't just taken advantage of me. He was using everyone around him. Even her. I asked Susan what it meant for the case. If Dana really didn't know, she's still legally exposed, she said. But if she flips on him and helps us build the criminal case, she could cut a deal. Immunity, even. That night, I got a long email from Dana. She confessed to not asking questions when the money was good. She admitted to spending recklessly because Brandon told her everything was handled. But she said she didn't know about the crypto, didn't know about the fake investor names. She was scared, angry, and finally ready to talk. I told Susan. 3 days later, Dana came into her office and gave a sworn statement. She handed over emails, bank records, even a recording she made months ago of Brandon admitting he moved money to dodge taxes. She turned on him completely. It exploded fast after that. Brandon was arrested 2 weeks later for wire fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering. His bail was denied. The feds got involved. Apparently, he'd been flagged before but never had enough pressure against him to bring it all together. But here's where things got twisted even more. Brandon had set up a backup trust fund in Dana's name without her knowing. And guess where the funds were coming from? My money, and the money from those other investors. He was preparing to skip town, drain the last of it, and disappear. If Dana hadn't flipped when she did, she would have taken the fall. I met with her again, face to face, for the first time in months. She looked 10 years older, tired, hollowed out. She apologized again, this time through tears. I messed up, she said. Not just with the money, with everything. I didn't say anything for a while. Then I said, you still have to face what you allowed. But you did the right thing, finally. We didn't hug. We didn't have some movie moment. It was quiet. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. The case wasn't over. The civil suit was still pending. And Brandon's trial was months away. But things were turning. And I was nowhere near done. Brandon's trial started 6 months later in a federal courtroom in Pittsburgh. By then, the story had made it to the local news. Tech entrepreneur charged in multi-state fraud scheme. They showed clips of him being walked into court in cuffs, hair slicked back, still trying to look important. I watched it all from the back of the courtroom in a plain flannel shirt and my old work boots. Dana took the stand on day 3. She wore black. No makeup. Just a quiet, tired woman who finally realized who she married. She didn't sugarcoat it. She admitted to turning a blind eye. Said she ignored red flags. But she also laid out everything Brandon did, how he faked emails, opened accounts under her name, convinced people he had government contracts and investor backing. None of it was true. The jury didn't take long. Brandon was found guilty on all counts: wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, tax evasion. The judge didn't hold back either. At sentencing, the judge said, you not only betrayed investors, but you weaponized your own family. You exploited trust to live like a king on the backs of people who loved you. Brandon got 22 years. But that wasn't the end. During the criminal trial, our civil case kept moving. With the new evidence Dana and others provided, we went after every asset Brandon had hidden. Offshore accounts, fake business fronts, even a secret luxury cabin in West Virginia bought under a shell company. Susan didn't miss a thing. When it was all done, the court awarded me every penny I'd lost, plus damages. $280,000 turned into $470,000 with interest and pain and suffering fees. The others Brandon scammed were also paid back. Slowly, piece by piece, the system began righting the wrongs. But that wasn't the best part. The court also allowed us to seize the house Dana and Brandon had once begged me to help save. The same one I co-signed the mortgage on. Turns out Brandon had quietly refinanced it and defaulted months before his arrest. Dana had no idea. She was in tears when the bank took it. But I didn't stop the foreclosure. I bought the house. Straight from the bank. Cash. And I didn't buy it to live in it. I bulldozed it. Every brick. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it to remind myself that I was done being walked on. That house was built on lies, guilt, and manipulation. It needed to be wiped clean. I sold the empty lot to a local veterans nonprofit for $1. I watched them build a transitional housing unit for homeless vets on the land. The dedication ceremony hit me hard. They named it Redemption House. I didn't ask them to do that. They said they were inspired by my story. As for Dana, we talk sometimes. She's renting a small apartment now, working part-time, going to therapy. She's rebuilding from the bottom. I don't give her money. I told her if she wants to fix things with me, it has to come from honesty, not guilt. And me? I'm doing okay. I fixed the ceiling in my kitchen. Hired a young guy who reminded me of me 40 years ago. Hardworking, polite. I overpaid him. Told him to keep showing up like that and he'd never struggle for work. I've got my savings back. I've got peace. And most of all, I've got self-respect. They thought I'd stay quiet. That I'd sit in my little recliner, let them take everything, and maybe die off before I noticed. But I stood up, and they learned the hard way. When you steal from a man who has nothing left to lose, you'd better not leave a paper trail. Brandon did, and I followed it all the way to the end.